Welcome to Ecommerce Revamped, where we break down the hottest trends, insider tips, and strategies shaping the future of e-commerce. Powered by Miva, the engine behind seamless online stores. Now here's your host, Rob Stanley.
Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Ecommerce Revamped. Sorry if my voice is a little off, had a little bit of allergy issues, but I've got a great one today. If you are tuning in, if you have not heard of this person or read this person's book or know about this person, where have you been? This guy is like old school e-commerce, but has all these new really cool tips going on. Let's bring in his studio, Steve from My Wife Quit Her Job, which we'll definitely get to that at the end on that whole thing because I love that whole story. But Steve, we are talking today a bit about AI strategies for higher conversion rates for e-commerce sellers. And, let's just kick this right off and go straight into some questions. How do you leverage AI to build a brand off Amazon? A lot of people are on Amazon, but a lot of them want to kind of they want to stay on Amazon, but they also want to build a whole brand off of Amazon. What's some tips you could give them right off the get-go?
What's funny is, if you asked me that question 5 years ago, people were all in on Amazon and they had no interest in going off Amazon because Amazon was where all the customers were at. But recently, with all the new fee changes and everything, those are all the questions I get now. And I think the biggest problem with people wanting to go from Amazon to having their own brand is there's some people that come up to me and they're selling these like commodity products on Amazon that worked because they found some obscure keywords, they ranked, and then they built a moat with reviews around their listing. But sometimes the products are not suitable for your own brand. So for example, I have this student in my class who sells just kind of mundane office products. And, they were in early, they built a moat, and they want to build a brand around just kind of regular commonplace products. And that's really hard to do. So first thing I would say is you need to figure out what like your value props are. And it always helps. It's always easier to build a brand if you have a strong value prop or just something interesting or different about your product. And the other thing that Amazon sellers have problems with is even figuring out like who's buying their products in the first place, because Amazon does not give you any of that information at all anymore. So that's why it's really hard for Amazon sellers to transition to their own brands. So usually what I have them do, right off the bat, is I'll have them use a tool like ChatGPT or Claude. And I'll say, hey, I'm an online store brand that sells X product. Give me like 5 different customer avatars that would potentially buy them. And then give me, what their needs and wants are. And usually ChatGPT will give you a whole set of customer demographics of those people who would buy your products. And then from there, building a brand it's something that takes a long time. You can't just wake up one day and say, hey, I want a strong brand. The way you build a brand is you have to build an audience. And the way you build a brand is you bring that audience back over and over and over again with a message until it becomes part of their mind share, so that when they think about your product, they're going to buy from you. I don't know if you want to just give run some examples. I can do that with my own brand. Where do you want to take this, Rob?
Yeah, why don't you give an example of that? And then after that, I want to transition a little bit into some of the AI tools you're using also.
Okay, sure. So we sell personalized handkerchiefs. It's one of our biggest products. And what we do is like a simple way to build your brand is you got to get your name out there and you got to grab email addresses so you can bring them back, email and SMS. So what most people do when they start their own brand is they need to run some form of advertising, right? And for most brands, I would say meta ads is probably the logical choice. And I know meta ads got a bad name a while back when iOS 14 came out. And if you guys aren't familiar with that, that's when Apple basically had heightened privacy, which basically destroyed meta ads for a period of time. But since then, meta ads, their AI and their machine learning has just gotten so good that running meta ads is easier than ever. So like I said, we sell personalized handkerchiefs. And we started out primarily targeting the wedding industry. And, during COVID is when we really had to pivot because all weddings were off. So what we did was you go up to ChatGPT now and you say, hey, give me 3 customer avatars for personalized handkerchiefs. And This is what it came up with the last time we did this exercise. The sentimental gift giver. These are people who like to give gifts that have meaning and not just some generic gifts. Wedding planners came up. That was our target demographic. There's actually people who collect handkerchiefs, it turns out. And this is a market that we hadn't tapped that much. There's people who like the old school vintage stuff. And then there's like another category of people who are just eco-friendly. Like they don't want to throw away paper or tissues and whatnot. And they want to, they want something that's reusable, like a handkerchief. And so what do you do with that data? Well, each one of those different customer avatars requires different language to sell into. And now with, AI tools like ChatGPT literally came out last week with this incredible image generation tool where you can have it generate all the creatives for your ads, targeting different language and whatnot for each of these customer avatars until you find one that hits. And once you find one that hits, you max out on your ads. And while you're bringing people to your site, you're gathering emails. And really the goal in the beginning with your ads is just to break even. Like as long as you're breaking even, that means you're getting email addresses, you're getting your name out there, and over time, your brand will be out there too. Meanwhile, you're getting repeat business as well from your email subs, from your SMS subs. And I would say that's like a pretty holistic answer on how you build a brand off of Amazon to first order.
Yeah, absolutely. No, that's some great information and definitely something people need to understand and learn. And I loved how you use ChatGPT in there because I'm daily on ChatGPT, especially in the marketing. Besides ChatGPT, Steve, what other AI tools have you utilized that, especially in the e-commerce space, and what are you using them for?
Yeah, so I think in the beginning you mentioned that we were going to be talking about conversions. I think when it comes to conversion rate, a lot of times it has to do with your imagery. I deal with a bunch of beginners in the e-commerce space, and oftentimes, like I'll teach them, like you need value props, you above the fold, you need like a hero image, and then testimonials and whatnot. And I think one of the biggest hurdles for people in the conversions is the images. And in the past, like you needed a large budget to hire models and whatnot. Let's say you sell apparel, for example. Today, all you really need to do is just take your phone, take an image of your product, and then use various tools to automatically place models into your products. Now, ChatGPT 4.0 just came out, and you can upload, a picture of apparel and say, "Hey, put a model in this outfit." That actually doesn't work exactly. It's good, but it always screws up the product a little bit. Like the details of your product aren't that great. So I actually use a couple of tools. There's this tool called Hawtech and WeShop.ai, where what you do, and this is what we do now, you take a picture of yourself posing with the product, and then the tool allows you to mask out just the product itself. So it knows that that's your product and you don't want to change that product. And then you have like a model, replace yourself with a model in the photo. And that works really well.
That is super cool. Give those both those names of those AI tools you just mentioned.
Yes, it's WeShop.ai and Hawtech. I think you spell it Hautech.
That's super cool. And I'm going to throw another one there, ecomtent.ai. So that's another good one. And actually Max is going to be on the show in about another 4 weeks. So check those out. Those are tools you guys need to utilize, especially, people are always getting the product and then they're like trying to take photos of it, which is fine, but a lot of times when you're trying to make a lifestyle image, you either have to hire people, and who's got the time to do that? It's like, you could just take these and turn around and make them into a lifestyle image of somebody holding it or doing something with it or using it. And that's great information. Great information, Steve. So Steve, what about when it comes to like integrating some of these AI into like existing e-commerce platforms? A lot of this seems to be kind of outside, but what kind of tools have you seen that kind of ride with, the e-commerce platforms, whether it's Miva, Shopify, or even Amazon? What have you used?
Yeah, so I've been experimenting lately with customer service bots. And this is where you basically just train a bot to answer all the most commonly asked questions. Um, so my personality, in case you guys don't know me, I actually do not like paying for third-party tools. And what I found, at least, is that using like the APIs that OpenAI and Claude give you, you can pretty much do it yourself. And I don't know what direction you want to go with this, Rob, but coding is so much easier now with these tools, to the point where I have a good friend who isn't technical at all, built a web app with Claude.ai in just a weekend.
Wow.
Yeah, it's so this is why I mean, this is kind of like a big take, but I think a lot of the SaaS apps in the Shopify store are in big trouble, because some of those apps do not do much, and yet they're charging $50, a month for them, and they can be really easily coded. Let me just give you an example. So I needed a loyalty app, kind of like Smile.io. So what I did is I took the video introducing all the features, fed it into Claude, and said, give me a framework to implement all these features for my own website. And then I was able to replicate all of the features of that loyalty program within 1 week. And I deployed it 1 week later after that. Every single same feature. Granted, I'm a little more technical than the average Joe, but now, with these AI tools, it's so easy to replicate simple tools.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's a great example you just gave. We're going to take a quick commercial break. And when we come back, I want to talk a little bit more, Steve, about integrating chatbots into your websites and why they're important right after this commercial break.
Looking to take your e-commerce business to the next level? Meet Miva, the platform powering seamless online stores with the flexibility you need to grow. From custom solutions to user-friendly tools, Miva helps you create unforgettable shopping experiences. Ready to transform your business? Visit miva.com/podcast and see what's possible.
So head on over to miva.com/podcast. We got all kinds of really cool downloadables, ebooks. One of my ebooks is in there on 100 different ways to drive external traffic to your website. So I'm on with Steve. We're talking about AI strategies for higher conversion rates in the e-commerce space. And right before the break, I was just asking Steve to, give us a little more information about chatbots, why they're important to have on your website, and how they help. Go ahead, Steve.
Yeah, so I think the biggest factor. Let me just pick up where I left off earlier. I tried creating a chatbot for the site where I just kind of fed in everything. I found that people don't like talking to chatbots. I don't know if that's been your experience, Rob. So where I've been mainly deploying them isn't so much publicly, but more on the back end with customer service emails, right? Because you can have an AI know what your most commonly asked questions are and then draft a reply. And we're using Gorgeous for this. You can draft a reply automatically with AI. And so that you can just have one customer rep just go through and make sure that it sounds correct before you hit send. And that ends up saving a ton of time.
That I love. I love that. And you're right. A lot of people don't. I kind of look at it this way. If I go to a website and there's a chatbot there, if I have a basic question, I can answer it. But if I get too deep into it, I'd love to see it just kick me over to sending in a actual question. I don't mind it being there, but if they try to do too much with it or make it the one-stop shop, I feel that it just doesn't work. It just doesn't seem to work out as well that way. Versus, if I have a basic question or, hey, I need to get customer service and it brings me to a form or lets me fill out a form within the chatbot. I think there's uses for it, but I think sometimes it's overused. I think is the way I've seen it. Yeah.
I mean, here's another use case
Good.
that I just recently started experimenting with. One of the biggest things that you need to have for your own brand is like customer testimonials. And for the longest time, we were trying to incentivize people to leave video reviews of our products. Like we even had like these tutorials where like hold your phone up like this, stand by a window, and we would pay them or give them free product in return for a review. All fine and good in theory, right? But what we found was that people are just horrible on camera. And what they would often give us, I would say, I don't know, 80% of the time was just unusable. And meanwhile, we have all these testimonials, and these are real testimonials, people saying good things about our products that I want to put on the site in a presentable way. And so what I've been experimenting lately is with this tool called arcads.ai. What that tool does is it has real human actors come in. And what they do is they kind of digitize these AI actors so that when you give them a script to say, it looks super realistic. It actually looks like this real person is saying what you want it to say. And that's the case because these are real human actors that have been trained. And we've been trying these testimonials out. And granted, these are real testimonials just given by an AI avatar that's actually a human actor. And we've been using them in our ads as testimonials. And we've been, putting them in different parts of our site where there's like decision points, like they're giving you their information or whatnot. It always helps to see something hyper realistic and someone saying good things about your company.
I love that. I'm going to have to look into that. That's a really cool one.
It just works surprisingly well. Yeah.
Yeah. I've seen examples of it.
Yeah.
And that was kind of the point I was going to make. I've seen examples where they're using just straight AI avatars and they're just not that great. Right. I love the fact that they have actual actors coming in and, giving it that actual human element to it. I think that adds a lot more. Plus, I think people are going to relate to it more because people are starting to really see and understand AI more. Like there's times I'll watch a video on Instagram and it's like, some weird theory video. And I'm like, yeah, that's definitely AI generated, it's just, you could tell pretty quickly, and it's like, not to pivot away from this a little bit, but I do want to talk a little bit about a lot of e-commerce sellers tend to have problems with inventory management. Mm-hmm. And I wonder, I know this is pivoting far from where we were just talking about, but I think it's an important topic. And I know that you have a lot of background when it comes to inventory management. Could you talk a little bit about like what things have you guys done with inventory management? Is there any AI involved and just maybe help out some people who are having issues with inventory management?
Yeah. I mean, just to be straight up with you, Rob, like we're not masters of inventory management. We've run a warehouse for 17 years and we still don't always get it right. I think what's made it much harder these days is social media. Because you can just get like one influencer that just randomly talks about your product and then all of a sudden your inventory goes to hell. But what we do is we have many years of data now. And I mean, there's a lot of things. I've written all of our own inventory projection tools, just kind of based on prior data. But I guess the biggest advice that I would give you guys now is if you have all of your prior sales data, and really there's only one way, the only way you can do inventory management is if you have prior sales data. These days, you can literally take your spreadsheet of all your inventory and like all of your sales, feed it into an AI tool like ChatGPT, and ask it for how much should I order? I mean, that's like a very basic question you can ask. I think in terms of actually managing the warehouse, the hardest problem that we've had is just kind of disappearing inventory. Like no matter how good your software tracking is, and I've written a whole bunch of things, our inventory is actually quite complicated because we have personalized goods that are based off of blank goods that we sell. So we might sell a 3-pack of handkerchiefs, but if someone orders one personalized one, it actually gets taken from the 3-pack. So we have to manage that sort of inventory. And ultimately things just get lost. And really the only solution we've had for that is to actually manually count the inventory at least once a month or once a quarter at minimum. And then leverage the data, pump it into AI tools and ask it, what are our most popular SKUs? How much should we order of these, assuming that we have growth of X% the following year? I don't know. Do you have heard of any novel applications of inventory management? You got to count this.
I have not.
It's so hard.
But I love your suggestion of taking like your past inventory history or sales history, dumping it in ChatGPT, and then see what it says, right? Especially you could probably even nail it down to a certain SKU number, and probably the more data you have, the better it's going to project, is my understanding. So that is awesome. And I want to stick with, you were talking about personalized handkerchiefs and sticking with the word personalize. What kind of AI tools are you guys using to personalize your email marketing campaigns?
For email marketing, we actually, so my wife is taking it over, and really just I find Claude is the best for that type of writing. I don't know if we're using that much automation for email because, I mean, outside of drafting an intro and whatnot, I think the hardest part about email is the proper segmentation. So rather than relying on AI to actually draft the actual email, which we do, I think the harder part is feeding the data in and having AI generate the right segments for you to send, because you don't want to just blast everybody. What's funny about this, that you asked this, is Klaviyo actually just recently came out with these AI features. They just announced them, and you can get early access to them, where Klaviyo will go out and it will tell you which segments that you need to email and which products that you need to present, so that you don't just blast everyone with, one monolithic email in your campaigns.
That's cool. That's really cool. I'm going to have to definitely look into that. Steve, I want to spend a little time because I think you probably have one of the coolest stories out there of kind of how you got into this space and everything. Could you tell everybody, this could probably take hours to talk about because I love the whole story, but talk a little about how you came up with the whole "my wife quit her job," because she actually did quit her job, but tell her a little bit about like the story behind that.
Yeah, I mean, I'll give you guys a condensed version. My wife, we live in the Silicon Valley, which is very expensive. And when my wife became pregnant with our first child, she went up to me and she said, "I don't like my job. I just want to stay at home and raise my kid." And I grew up with first generation, Chinese parents, and they worked their butts off. I never got a chance to see them. And so when my wife told me that, I was like, okay, fine. I'm all on board with that. The question is money. You pretty much need two incomes to get a good house and a good school district. And that's where we came up with the idea to sell handkerchiefs. And the way we came up with that idea was back when we first got married. My wife, she's a crier. Like, she'll cry at anything, whether she's happy or sad. And we looked all over the place for handkerchiefs because we spent an ungodly amount of money on photography, and she didn't want photos with her using ratty tissues. Looked all over for handkerchiefs, couldn't find them anywhere. Finally, we found this factory in China where you had to buy like 200. That was the minimum order. So we ended up importing 200 hankies from China, using a handful of them in the actual wedding. And then we listed the rest on eBay just to kind of get rid of them. And they ended up selling like hotcakes. And I remember when we first started our store, my wife was really into embroidery. And so that's where we got the idea of selling personalized handkerchiefs online. And this was back in 2007. Today, it's a 7-figure business. We've been running it. This is our 18th year running it. And this is way before Amazon was even a thing.
Yeah, absolutely. So Steve knows I'm from the Bay Area. It is definitely expensive. I was born and raised in the Bay Area up until a year ago. I left, but it is definitely expensive there, and such a great story. And Steve and I have somewhat similar stories. My wife didn't quit. I actually started a business and had her quit her job. So, but it's a little bit different, but yeah, it's definitely a really cool thing to see you succeed and really grow. I want you to talk a bit about your book, which I actually have a copy of.
Oh, awesome.
Steve gave me one.
Yeah.
So tell everybody a little bit about your book. The listeners, tell them what it's about, what the title is, how they get a hold of it. And yeah, go ahead, Steve.
Yeah. I'll just tell a little story here about why I wrote the book. The store was really successful right from the start. And what I found, like, we started the store so we could spend more time with family. But what I found was, as the store got bigger, I kept moving the goalposts. Like, okay, we hit 6 figures. Let's hit 7 figures. Okay, let's double our revenue for the following year. And it just got to this point where I was spending more time on the business, and that was what was on my mind the entire time, that I started forgetting why I started the store in the first place. And so the book is really about being able to find that balance between making money and keeping yourself stimulated while remembering why you started your business in the first place. And for me, it was family. And for most people, I would say people start businesses for financial freedom. And the book is actually more relevant than ever now because of AI. Like, the first half of the book is talking about, systems in place to get your store and your initial sales. The latter half of the book is all about automation. And I work about 20 hours a week. and we have very few employees. I'm kind of anti-employee in a way, and I'm actually looking forward to the wave of robots that are coming out, because to me at least, and this is just based on my personality, I don't like managing people. And maybe it's because I'm an electrical engineer. I prefer to like code something up, which is why you'll hear me, talking about code a lot. And with AI now, like I encourage you, even if you guys aren't coders at all, just work with ChatGPT and try to implement some sort of app just by using natural language. And then once you get a little bit more advanced, you can tap into like the APIs of OpenAI and actually feed in your queries, not by typing them in, but feeding them in programmatically and getting an answer. And you'll find once you know how to do some basic stuff, it will really open up your eyes to automating almost everything with your business so you can run much more lean.
Absolutely. And,
Yeah.
I always see it this way. You got to stay up with technology, and AI is the latest one. For those that are listening, the name of the book is called The Family First Entrepreneur. I don't know. The rest of you can probably see it on my screen here. And check that out. Go buy it. Get it. I'm sure it's probably on Amazon, right, Steve?
Mhm. Yeah.
And maybe even a digital copy if they need it.
There's a digital copy. There's actually an
Excellent.
audiobook where I narrated it for
Nice.
it was like
You didn't
8
have
hours
AI
or
do
something
it?
crazy. Yeah. Yeah, actually today you could have AI do it, right? Yeah, it's
I
funny.
thought about that. Yeah. I thought about doing my whole ebook that I did for Miva, maybe having it automated. So there's another copy, or some people could just listen to it. But Steve, great having you on. I do want people to be able to reach out to you. The email you gave me, I have, and I'm just going to throw this up on the screen and read it for everybody who's interested. So I got Steve at mywifequitherjob.com, or just head on over to mywifequitherjob.com. And you can get a hold of Steve that way. If you have any questions for him, or maybe you have a question regarding one of the tools we just mentioned, he'd probably be more than happy to answer that for you guys. And go check out his website, My Wife Quit Her Job, and be sure to take a look at the book, The Family First Entrepreneur, on Amazon. Steve, always a pleasure having you on. Always great information, and absolutely appreciate you coming on the podcast. And thank you so much. And we'll definitely talk to you on the next episode. Thanks.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Rob. Appreciate it.
You got it.
Thanks for tuning in to E-Commerce Revamped. Ready to take your e-commerce business to the next level? Visit miva.com for the tools to build seamless online stores and unforgettable customer experiences. Until next time, keep your carts full and your